Nothing. It's a card from my dad.
What is it?
Nothing. It's a card from my dad.
What is it? Wait. Dear son, happy Festivus? What is Festivus?
It's nothing. It's nothing.
When George was growing up,
No.
his father hated all the commercial and religious aspects of Christmas,
Yeah.
so he made up his own holiday.
All right.
And instead of a tree, didn't your father put up an aluminum pole?
Jerry, stop it.
But weren't there feats of strength that always ended up with you crying?
Can't think of any more. I'm going to work. You happy now?
Hey! Happy Festivus, everyone!
Welcome, newcomers.
I find your belief system fascinating.
The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're gonna hear about it.
Another Festivus miracle!
Well, I guess it's another miracle that we're still on the air doing this. But as a wise man once said, Festivus is until you pin me. Festivus is not over. So stop your crying and fight your father. This is the Presby-cast Festivus for the rest of us. I don't know. This is at least our fourth one. It could be up to our fifth.
Yeah, I think it's number 5. I think it's
okay.
number 5.
Well, let's just make ourselves look better and say that this is our fifth Presby-cast Festivus special, a tradition which dates back pretty much to the first year of the show. We've been doing this, so it's great to be here yet again. I have once again reclaimed the Festivus Feats of Strength title. It will not forever be mine, but at least for now, I can still say that my children are weaker than me. And we've got a couple guests already in here. We've got our good friend WCF Linux, who is here. On the far left of your screen, if you're watching from home, you'll notice our Festivus pole, gray, made of digital aluminum, prized for its strength to weight ratio. And in the bottom left of the talking heads, you'll see Dan Borvin wearing a jacket made of tinsel, which I admit I find a bit distracting. But welcome, Dan. This is typically your domain. I think you have been present for all 5 of these as we have. So
he
you're
is
present.
he is the Bishop of Western Festivus.
These are my
That
official
is correct.
clerical vestments that I've been wearing all day. Many episcopal duties today, this holiest day of the year. Happy Festivus to all in the name of Costanza.
Well,
Indeed.
yes, happy, bearable, survivable Festivus to everyone. And this is the first time we've ever done it on Festivus, the 23rd. We haven't even done it on Festivus Eve before. So this is the regulative principle of Festivus is in operation here. And we take this as seriously as you do. And as I was telling my wife tonight, she said, "Are you going to put up a poll?" And I said, "Well, first of all, you banned me from, you nixed that idea. You vetoed it." I said, "But the most important Festivus poll is the one in your heart. And I want everybody to remember that." And I've got one on the screen, and we've got them in our hearts. So
We take Festivus as seriously as evangelicals take the RPW seriously.
that's right. Yeah. I think we want to model, good seriousness taking here. We're going to do the best we can. So, guests who are waiting in the green room, we'll get to some of you.
What's the EPC? What's the EPC's motto like on?
In essentials, unity. In everything else, do whatever you want to. What is
In all things, frivolity.
Yeah,
in all things charity, and
in all things Festivus grievances.
That's right. Well, we're glad to be here, of course, and it felt like it would never come. It felt like it was always winter and never Festivus, as I think it was Tolkien or Lewis used to say. So, well, I don't know what in the world we'll talk about. It's 2021.
It's been a great year.
The year to follow the wonderful year of 2020. And I thought to put everybody in the spirit, we should probably, we should commemorate the year. And, it depends on who you believe. Maybe COVID is on its last legs. And maybe nobody at the government level is actually going to get that memo. But let me just ask Dan, are you familiar with the name Francis Collins?
I don't think so.
Well, he's the head of the NIH. And he just
retired.
He's
the guy with the guitar.
Yes.
A fine musician.
Yeah.
As the head of public health, he's a good musician.
And he's said to be an evangelical of sorts. Now, mitigating against that might be the fact that he founded BioLogos. Does that mean anything to you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Sort of a advocate of theistic evolution,
right.
friend of Tim Keller, friend of N.T. Wright.
If he's retired, maybe we could get him to be our praise band leader.
Maybe. So consider this his
Up the Magic Dragon. I mean, that's a good special music.
Well, this song that I think Chortles is about to play. He basically emptied the budget on Cameo, getting Francis Collins to play this. So we have no more money. This could be our last episode, but it was all worth it.
Right. So this is again Dr. Francis Collins, an evangelical of sorts. I don't know. I mean, I've seen video clips of him playing a guitar in a choir robe. So maybe he's a mainliner, but he's sort of considered to be an evangelical or evangelical adjacent.
It might have been a Geneva gown. You never know.
No, it was colored. It was it matched other. It was a choir robe. So let's
18th century Geneva gown.
Yeah, let's hear Dr. Francis Collins for a little inspiration, and whether this will prompt any grievance airing, only time will tell. I'm going to leave your mic up, Dan and Presby, because, I think we may have such positive reactions that we want to share them as it goes.
And now, if you'll indulge me, because it's been kind of promoted as if it might be a grand finale of a musical sort, I guess I'd like to play us out with a little song. So, if I might, I just need a microphone. Why, there's a guitar right here. How about that? This is a song where the tune will be familiar to you, unless you came from another planet recently. But the words are going to be quite different, because this is really a song for you, a song for all of us.
And why would anyone come to this planet recently?
And trying to imagine, how's it going to feel when we're finally past that? What will that be like?
This is already making me feel like the aliens in Independence Day were the good guys.
So Eddie Van Halen dies and this guy lives. There's no justice.
Somewhere past the pandemic, when we're free, there's a life I remember, full of activity.
We need John Belushi from Animal House.
Somewhere past the pandemic,
we also need John Belushi's bottle of whiskey from Animal House.
Come off. No more need for a nose swab every time we cough. As we are gathered here today, COVID's toll has hit and sent us reeling. But
we are not a
partners
serious
like
country.
The ones right here will help to make the pathway clear to find a true healing. Somewhere past the pandemic, life will resume.
Little known fact: during the Black Plague, the
All
troubadours would
complain
serenade
about the traffic, forgetting
manner.
how we hated Zoom. Somewhere past the pandemic, we'll hug our friends.
Coming to a PCAGA near you.
Thank the people and science that brought the pandemic's end. My dozen years are almost through.
Yes.
But it's been great to work with you. Let's end COVID now.
I used to think Imagine by John Lennon was the worst song of all time. I think this guy might have that.
If you're trying to lose belly fat, stop doing cardio.
What
It
show
sounds
is
kind of
this?
backwards, right? Well, believe me, it's actually
I thought you said we didn't have any ads on this episode.
What a strange post.
Okay, sorry about that. We had an autoplay video there, and there's Resby on
Is
the
that the
left.
Shake Weight sponsoring the Presby-cast?
Yeah, and see, a lot of people don't. That was actually Chortles in the black tank top. Many people are unaware of his new arm tattoos. But I was going to say, on the lines of Imagine, the only way that could have been worse is if he had done Imagine instead of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So maybe his song choice was a Festivus miracle because it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
Well,
and that's a sermon in total depravity. Okay, we're not as bad as we could be, but it's the fact that we're not good enough.
Yeah, it's it's always a hazard to play anything straight from YouTube. I didn't have time to download that one. I actually know how to do that, but that just didn't happen tonight. So that's a pro tip for anyone sharing videos. You got to be careful about the ads. And oh, there we go. It happened again. I'm trying to make it go away. Okay. Well, there's a grievance. YouTube. There's one, and that's a good one.
This is big tech trying to shut us down. That's what this is.
Yeah, trying to make us look like a less than fully professional operation here.
And we should state that if you, the listener, would like to eliminate occurrences like this, is that we are willing to accept a deal worth up to half as much as Joe Rogan's deal with Spotify. So for merely $75 million, we can move to the platform of your choice.
Sermon Audio should sponsor you guys the way Spotify sponsors Rogan. Exclusive to Sermon Audio, the Presby-cast.
Well, we should mention, I know we joked earlier about not having sponsors, but once again this year, sometimes the kids trick or treat for UNICEF, if that's what they're still doing. However, we are still an official donation station for the Human Fund. Once again, raising money for people. So if you just have too much money, we will gladly accept it and make sure that people receive it.
Who was your last one? Was it Slippery Slope Coat was the sponsor?
Slope Coat, yeah.
Slope Coat, yeah. I got those in my kid's stocking this year.
Good. Yeah,
they're very excited.
I hope you got like the pint can, because a gallon can would wreck a stocking. That stuff is heavier. It's heavier than water, for sure.
Well,
it slipped out of my hands like 3 times.
Dan's stockings are made of Kevlar weave. It's really, really impressive stuff.
This is a bulletproof jacket I'm wearing here, lest any anti-Festuvians come after me. I'm protected.
All right, so before we move on in any way, anything you'd like to say about Francis Collins, his guitar style, the National Institutes of Health, or the worldwide governmental response to COVID?
What can you say? I'm just glad that I think the trade-off of COVID, had we not had COVID, we would never know his musical talents. So I think it's a fair trade. We've been blessed by his amazing musical skill, despite the fact, a lot of bad aspects of COVID, but without it, we would never know what an amazing musician he is. So I think it's even.
I believe it was the great Saint Silky Johnson at the first ever Player Hater Awards when he so astutely said, "What can I say about your suit that hasn't already been said about Afghanistan?" And I feel like if we can just channel that towards that song, I think it's a fine review.
All right. Well, I brought in a couple more of our friends, and I guess we'll just get Lennox got in here first. He's been on some of these shows before. He joins us on Discord as well. So, Lennox, you're an erudite and learned man. Unmute yourself and tell us how the world is.
Honestly, the world is great. I mean, everybody's being encouraged to stay in their homes again. Everybody's encouraged to go and do regular testing. And I mean, as somebody who was a nerdy kid, I always found tests fun. So honestly, I'm just not really sure what there is to complain about this week.
Well, that's a sunny take from you. That's surprising and good. So, thanks for that. Now, you are what state are you in? Is it Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania, yes.
Okay. So, how are the COVID? What's the COVID outlook up there?
Well, it really depends on how close to the city you drive, and we tend to avoid minimizing that. So, for the most part, I don't think the masks are any higher now than they have been a couple months ago. There's, a lot more people skipping church because they were sick, but other than that, you wouldn't really know that anything's different than it was a couple months ago. So things are kind of on a level over here.
All right. Well, one of our other guests, Dale, young Dale, unmute yourself, Dale, and you're in the free state of South Carolina, so I'm sure there's an Omicron variant panic going on there.
No, and God bless Henry McMaster, because we haven't been doing anything really since I actually got down here. In fact, when I moved to Greenville about at this point 2 years ago or so, when I moved down to South Carolina from North Carolina, it was like a culture shock because North Carolinians were like scared out of their minds about COVID. And in South Carolina, after 3 months, they opened back up acting as if nothing had ever happened. It was wonderful. And Henry and McMaster, kept it like that. So it was pretty wonderful. South Carolina is actually a little underrated.
We'll trade you straight up for Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
And a lieutenant governor to be named later.
We'll keep McMaster.
He's got great hair.
Well, Dale,
that's relative.
Dale, you're a student at Greenville Presbyterian Theological Seminary. So, is there anyone there at the seminary you'd like to throw under the bus, the big Presby bus?
Well, he doesn't go to Greenville, but he is a pastor in the PCA. His name's Sean Morris. The homie just sent me a Facebook Messenger saying, "Boo, get off the stage." The only thing I'll say to Sean is, as I always say to Sean whenever he pushes my buttons the way he does. I mean, we push each other's buttons all the time, but the only thing I'll say is publicly instead of through text, Sean, once again, charges are coming. It's just a matter of time. That's an inside joke. You'll get it. But anyway, as far as Greenville goes,
the inside joke is that Joe Biden has slowed down everything, that you can't even deliver ecclesial charges on time anymore.
Well, I think it'll work with Sean. But anyway, with the Greenville Seminary, I would just like to throw well, actually, I don't know that I'd want to throw anybody under the bus beside a buddy of mine who somehow misplaced one of my exams. My Greek
do you have a dog? Do you have a dog?
Not with me.
Well, there went that excuse.
No, he actually. What happened was he sent me a text message and a group message saying, "Well, Dale, it looks like you failed Greek," because evidently he sent the wrong file to the guy who was grading our exams. And I was like, "Holy crap! I'm gonna have to retake this beast again." And what ended up happening is, like, I called him later and he said, no, I just sent the wrong file, and thank God I didn't delete the file because I threw away the hard copy of your exam. He threw it away, but he still had the electric copy, and he sent it in, and I was like, dude, you almost gave me a heart attack, man. Like, that's not cool.
Just think
right
of it
before
this way.
Christmas.
Just think of it this way. It's not that you would have had to retake Greek. It's that they would have had to retake you.
Well, Dale, I think you need to consider a podcast called Seminary Confidential. Just think about that.
No,
I think we did. I think we had an episode called that.
I think we did.
This isn't that confidential because he's not going to watch this. He's got better things to do.
Air the grievances.
But yeah, you said air my grievances, and I have a grievance with this student that I'm going. I did him a favor by not naming his name. He knows who he is, though.
All right, we're going to go to our Arizona contingency contingent. Are you there, Luca? And you've got a friend who I think we know as well.
Indeed.
Hi guys, Jack Spratt here.
Oh yeah, this is one of our Discord server friends, and you all are fellow church members.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an OPC church somewhere in Arizona.
Yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going on out there, and what do you have for us?
You can start, Jack.
Oh, me? Well, I have something for Linux. I don't know if he's seen this. Where's the camera? It's Chip Tam Sam from Pittsburgh.
How's come you ain't watching the game? Experts on.
Yeah, there he is. I'm a fellow Pittsburgher, native Pittsburgher, so you can take the girl out of the Steel City, but you can't take the Steel City out of the girl.
It sounds like you're playing music there.
Yes, that's off to Paul. He's playing the harp now.
Okay, well that's good.
More important.
That's your background music.
Are you guys in heaven?
Arizona, you bet.
A collection of the most bizarre people.
Yes, in this household, yes.
So is he playing my favorite tune, Let All Mortal Flesh Keep Silence?
He is indeed, yeah.
It's ironic that he's playing Let All Mortal Flesh Keep Silence in the background of our podcast. It's definitely not silent, but anyway, that's okay. That's okay. So, Luca, you're from Brazil, right?
I am.
And there are a lot of Presbyterians in Brazil. In fact, there are probably more conservative Presbyterians in Mexico, and certainly in Brazil, than there are in the U.S. Can you confirm that?
I think so.
Yeah, the numbers are surprising if you look into that. I was starting another article, and I began to write that the PCA was the largest conservative Presbyterian church in North America, and Mexico's in North America, so I had to scratch that line. Very counterintuitive for us imperialistic, ugly Americans.
We got the best one here, though. The best conservative Brazilian Protestant.
Oh,
right
goodness.
Well,
the Pele of Presbyterianism. I'm sorry, I had to say it. I couldn't resist.
Oh goodness.
Well, Luca and Jack, it's nice to have you with us, and we may return to you. And who knows what he'll be playing when we come back to you.
You never know.
So, yeah, say hello to the musician.
All righty.
All right. So let's see who else we have with us. We've had more join. This is a bigger crowd than we normally get. Oh, well, here's one of our conservative North American Presbyterian friends. Job, are you with us? Job? Pastor Job. He hasn't unmuted. We'll see if he...
oh, sorry about that.
There he is. He has a very pleasant, lilting sort of soft voice, so I'll turn him up a bit. So how are things in North Georgia?
They're wonderful. I've been banished outside due to my family. They said if you're going to do this, you have to go outside. So it's 40 degrees, and but it's actually a nice 40 degrees.
Yeah, it's not bad. I walk the dog Ranger the Presby dog about an hour ago. Not too bad. So I guess you probably had the live nativity and the multiple pre-Christmas services down there. Tell us about that.
We have none planned, and I preached Psalm 35 on December 19th, an imprecatory psalm, as a Christmas sermon. Now, I didn't do that on purpose per se. I'm preaching through the Psalms, and that happened to be the next text. But I almost titled it David's Christmas Wish List, The Destruction of My Enemies, number 1, The Glory of God, number 2. So I thought that seemed a little unnecessary, but
that would make a great Festivus sermon.
Yeah, absolutely. It fits the show well, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I've always said there should be more Christmas psalms. We did have a lessons, and we're having, my church has sort of a simple lessons and carols thing. We're having 2 this year, one last night at our church plant, and then there'll be another one tomorrow night, but I won't be here for that one. But my wife complained that there were no psalms in the service. So that's the kind of Presby geek that she is. And I'm happy to have her.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I just kept going through it. I mean, there are some of the Psalms obviously have incarnation, points to be made, and I felt that when they were appropriate, I tried to make 1 or 2. But no, nothing. My son is 7, and as we explained, Second Commandment violation. So he's rather like a zealot right now. So tonight, we went to a light show before, and he kept saying, "Turn your eyes, turn your eyes." He's really on a kick about this. It's really something.
Yeah, one of our listeners or Discord friends, or maybe I think it was you, went to the young child sort of educated and scolded grandma.
He did.
Without violating the 5th commandment, I'm sure.
But no. We went to visit our family last week, and he's 7, and he came in and he saw something up, and he just very politely said, "Nana, do you realize you have a graven image of Jesus in your house?" And she talked to him. She asked me about it, and she took it down. So,
yeah, and here's what he said. He said,
"A man got to have a code."
So that's good. We have a code, and it's opposed to those manger scenes.
Yeah, he is very opposed to. He continuously calls them graven images. He's very strict in his wording.
Well, he's a literalist.
Oh,
don't.
I like a TR iconoclast.
Oh,
the best kind of iconoclast.
He's very into this, and I mean, I'm thankful. Like it's. I laugh at him, but to be serious, it's he's taken to it. He's being funny at times, obviously, but there are also a lot of times he's just saying, "No, we have to get rid of these." He told somebody at church about it. I was like, "Now, son, you're gonna have to be, respectful as you talk to people about these things." So,
my 4-year-old throws away any Christmas cards that have graven images on them. Not in our house, she says.
You should get the child a shredder, and you could use that stuff for decoration.
I'm worried she's going to take my cigar lighter and just light them up.
Oh, I think my son would have already done it if I. Now we don't have any, but if he saw him, I said, "Son, deal with that." He probably would have taken care of it.
Yeah, the bonfire of the vanities at the Borvin household.
Straight to the wood chipper.
Yeah.
Has California banned gas lighters yet? I know that.
On the way. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to bring in another guest, and we can get to one of the sort of first planned items that we have. And this is one of the guys from the Restless and the Restless Pod, and they were doing the Young, Restless, and Reformed deconstruction before Christianity Today turned it into a massive cash cow. But I'm sure a windfall has come to you guys, right?
That is true. I can't just pour all the. I have grievances with Mike Cosper and Christianity Today, no doubt, but certainly they quickly doubled our podcast listens as people began seeking for a group of people talking about Mark Driscoll that weren't trying to turn everyone into egalitarians. So we found some new appreciative listeners that way.
Well, that's good.
I hope you swear as much as they do on their podcast.
I don't.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah. Well, we try and keep it family friendly, which we've been doing reviews of some of their episodes since we'll never get these interviews. So that made the one where Mark Driscoll talks about women pretty difficult for our own show.
Well, we still have to. I believe we still have our standing appointment for us to read through that chapter of Real Marriage.
We do
for an episode. So if you guys need a Valentine's Day special,
man.
I happen to know a person who knows somebody who plays the harp, as demonstrated earlier in this episode. So we could pop some Chardonnay and read through that bad boy. And
does he know any Barry White on the harp?
This is a Festivus miracle, I think. This is what we're talking about.
All right, so remind me of your name and your partner's name because I'm constantly confusing you.
Yep, sorry, and I didn't put my name on my my video. So I'm Matt Klein, and I podcast with Pastor Michael Bowman on a podcast called Restless, which is a post-mortem on the Young, Restless, and Reformed, which we started about just over a year ago. And we've done all kinds of subjects. Coming up, we have what we're going to do. We're going to do our own 12 Days of Restless, where we settle scores from a bunch of recent Twitter kerfuffles. And so that will be some enjoyable listening if your podcasts take a break this holiday season. So I'm Matt, so you can use that tonight.
Yeah, and we had you on right after you started the show.
That's right.
So we were an early supporter, but as a podcaster, you can't listen to all the other podcasts you want to listen to. So
of course,
I catch some of yours, and but I know it's good stuff. Just the episode titles are enough to show me that you're doing a good job. All right, so I'm going to leave you unmuted, and of course Dan, the Bishop of Western Festivus, he's here. And I want to run through Colin Hansen. You might have heard of him, Matt, right? Didn't he have something to do with the Young Restless?
We have
thing?
heard of him.
Yes.
Colin Hansen, love to have you on the show. He did invent it with his book and his piece for Christianity Today.
Way back in what, 2009?
2009.
Well,
his book came out in 2008, but his article came out in 2004. His original article.
There you go. All right. Well, this is and I just have a grievance against this whole concept. The TGC list of the top air quotes theology stories. I say air quotes because there's very little theology in any of these stories. But let's just take a look at these. We're scrolling, and I'll stop when we finally get to the content.
Yeah.
And after we've gone through a few, we'll open it up for comments from other participants. We can't have all 10 people talking at once.
It wouldn't be a TGC feature if it wasn't 8,000 words, right? So we're just
some of them are fairly brief. So I think this is the author of the piece, and I think this tells you where he's coming from on the naivete scale. Quote, I expected Christians to search for hope and healing in 2021. I've never been more wrong.
Oh.
So apparently, Total Depravity was canceled. Well, he expected it to be canceled in 2021, and it was not to be.
No.
Apparently, he didn't realize that hope and healing died of COVID.
Has he been on Twitter? There's no hope and healing in this place.
That's the way I look at it. But let's see here. So here we go. We're going to start from the bottom, number 10.
And now we hear.
Welcome to the Metaverse. So this thing that was announced about a month ago, it made the top 10, and that is Facebook's Metaverse. Now I should say, some of you probably caught this. The execrable organization known as Life Church, that's Craig Greshel's outfit. They're the ones who coined a term which was adopted by a megachurch, local to me. We'll do anything short of sin to reach people. The problem is their definition of sin is a little interesting, I think. But so, welcome to the Metaverse. But that LifeChurch.tv with Craig Greschel, they now have a service and a campus in the Metaverse. So, Dan, are you all in the Metaverse out there? Because you're in California and everything.
We just opened our Metaverse campus. We're working with Mac to assist us in the sacraments. That's the hardest part of the Metaverse. So we're working on computers that will shoot out water for baptisms and wine. So you open your mouth, the wine shoots right in for the Lord's Supper. And then the bread comes through Uber Eats. So it's a full service means of grace campus, and should be up early in 2022.
All right. So
there's been nothing more. Sorry, there's just been nothing more unsettling to me than in 1 month how this kind of one-off phrase by Mark Zuckerberg has become the thing we all must speak of, including in this theology blog.
All right, I'm going to unmute Linux because he's a geek. Linux, are you living in the Metaverse? I mean, you have your VR goggles on most of the day.
Only about a quarter of the day, and mainly for what I will prefer to call strictly professional purposes. My customers insist on meeting me in VR sometimes. I don't know why.
All right, well, see, here's what this is reality here. I mean, this is a real thing.
I'll just have to say, Dan, if you do go and develop your megachurch concept, you really need to make sure you open source as many things as possible. The open source community is a vibrant place, and Christians should be sharing.
We're open sourcing the confessions, so you can adjust them according to your whim.
Open source, open minds, open hearts.
If Crossway gets involved, it's not going to be open source. It's all going to be locked down.
TM. Trademark.
That's what they'll call open core. They'll claim it's open source. They'll claim anyone can contribute, and yet, to get the real thing, you still have to pay them.
All right. So, Dale, you're a young guy, so you're like the target market here. So, are you into the Metaverse, theologically speaking?
Nah, not really. I mean, that's probably not what you were looking for, but I mean, I don't have much to say.
You're an old soul.
I could probably live without Facebook, but at the same time, I mean, who else are going to see? How else am I going to share my love for the Scottish Psalter and the King James if I didn't have Facebook or Twitter?
Well, we'll talk about your oddities later if we run out of other things to talk about.
Now, all that being said, I'm not a King James onlyist, and I'm not an exclusive psalmist, but they do have good stuff. Like, let's just be real.
Right,
well, I'm old enough to remember.
We're about virtual reality here now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when everyone was encouraged to buy visual aid goggles and wear them in their house. And I'm, of course, talking about 3D televisions, which, died a death that could only be more mirrored in trajectory by a North Korean missile. So I'm sure that there's more money behind the Metaverse than 3D televisions. But, man, this is the dorkiest thing I've ever seen. I mean, it's just, if this was on a playground, it should have its face in the sand. I mean, just everyone should throw dodgeballs at this one thing first.
All right, so
I'm surprised by this, though. I guess that would be my question.
What was that, Job?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying this is top 10, but to me it would be like this should be in the top 10 of things that we should have expected immediately upon announcement. Is for someone to come out and want to make this a church thing. It seems so typical.
Is it possible they already had this like pre-prepared? Like they were just like, all right, go.
I'm waiting
All
for
right,
the TGC article on how the metaverse brings the gospel to us.
Oh.
Well, but it's a virtual city, the Sim city of the gospel transformationalism.
Okay, so while we're talking on the metaverse, we need to talk about this first. Which person in evangelicalism in the metaverse do we think is going to have an avatar that resembles the most anime or Sailor Moon-esque character?
Beth Moore.
See, I don't think so. Just based on gender.
The bug
alone.
eyes. Beth Moore and her crazy eyes need an anime avatar.
Can we for a second just, if we may vision cast as our metaverse supporting pastors do, think about how awesome it would have been if Mark Driscoll had tried to pull William Wallace 2 in the metaverse. Just him standing in digital blue paint on a field somewhere with like
carrying the claymore sword
with like 8 guys behind him, but as far as he's concerned, it's half of Scotland.
I want to know, can I get skinny jeans and a satchel for my PCA avatar?
Oh, that would be the seminary satchel man meme. Yeah.
He's on the metaverse.
The PCA waifus will be out in force, I'm sure.
All right, well, let's move on to number 9 on this top 10 air quotes theology stories. I guess this one is sort of theological, and they sort of dance around, but rising generation debates loyalty to pre-Reformation creeds. Let me read this. It doesn't necessarily, it's not self-evident just on the title. Quote, especially within the Baptist tradition, younger theologians continue to contend with and against each other over the relationship between the Bible and ecumenical creeds. And then it comes in, brings up ESS, ERS, ERAS, some of these Trinitarian issues. So, Dan, you're a theologian. What's the deal here?
Well, I'm encouraged that Baptists are starting to discover there are other confessions than the Baptist faith and message. So if this means that Baptists are getting closer to the historic creeds and confessions, I think that's a good thing.
All right. I've often wondered, not in a snarky way, I hope, but how many evangelicals and country Baptists could articulate any sort of coherent Trinitarian theology when, those we contend that, we sort of agree. I think it's the Athanasian Creed that says basically if you don't have the right idea about these things, you're not in the you're just not in the church. That's a pretty big deal.
I figured this story was an auto skip because the opening sentence included the Baptist tradition here on the Presby-cast.
Well, no. We're truly ecumenical. So there's a sort of theological story, and there's some links. You might want to go in there.
Judging by First Baptist Dallas having Trump in their service this past Sunday, I wonder if the art of the deal is a new ecumenical creed.
Yeah, that's a good question.
This story is a YRR problem, so I'll say sorry for that one for all of you. That's clearly who we're talking about in this number 9.
So you're saying that the Young, Restless, and Reformed and the missional and the metropolitan might have put practice and practical things above Trinitarian theology.
And we all used Wayne Grudem's systematic theology for 10 years straight. So
there you go. That'll do it.
Well, let the record show that I never used Wayne Grudem, even though it was put in my lap. So my Trinitarian theology, for where it lacks, is not there.
All right, so we're gonna finish. We're gonna take a break from that because we have yet another celebrity guest. It's Dr. R. Scott Clark, church historian who needs to unmute himself. He's out there in California with Dan, and maybe I'll try to unmute him. Are you there, Doctor? He's working on his audio routing. It's not going well. We'll give him a chance to tweak a bit. And,
to be fair, it rained today for the first time in 2021, so that might have be messing up his technology. Yet another cause of grievance in California. It actually rained.
All right, if the doctor can hear us, we've got there's an audio feedback or some sort of static. Make sure you got the right mic selected. Yeah.
How's it?
It's very bad, actually. So
that sounds like Legion.
We'll try one more time. Nope, no better. Okay, you might.
It was sort of cool. We all sound like characters from the '86 Transformers movie.
Is that what Omicron sounds like?
Yeah, well, it's
or Omicron, as our president would say.
Omni, yeah.
You know the thing.
So I guess the naming of these viruses is something for you Greek scholars. And they skip.
I can't wait till we get to P.
All right. Well, I've unmuted you again there, Scott. It's not good. Make sure you got the right mic selected and the right audio source on your computer. Let's jump back to number. While Scott's working on that, let's jump back to point 8 from the TGC non-theology theology top 10. Number 8, verdicts revive trauma from violence in 2020. Well, that's a sentence right there. Verdicts revive trauma from violence in 2020. They basically said, those racial stories that you heard about and the riots and stuff, we didn't like that, but we don't know what to think about it. Does anyone else have another take on this particular story?
Mostly peaceful riots result in mostly idiotic take.
What does this have to do with Christianity?
Well, you're the pastor. We're looking to you for guidance on this. I mean, you've been preaching about these things all for the last 2 years, right?
With the newspaper in my hand and the Bible in the other, I don't think the pedophiles that Rittenhouse shot were Christian martyrs. So what does this have to do with Christianity?
I was reminded of something pretty bad this week. There was a group, I forget the name, one of these kind of whiny, ancient future acoustic Christian worship groups. They actually wrote a George Floyd hymn, and it was called "O Sacred Neck Now Wounded," and it put George Floyd in the place of Christ, which was I don't know. I don't think it was cool, but someone revived that this week. So that that sort of applies to this point. So
they're stealing the headlines from the Babylon Bee in advance.
Arguably, that's true. Let's see if Dr.
You can't parody this stuff.
How's this?
Yeah, I think you're better there, Doctor.
All right.
Let's go back to the wide view, and I'll turn you up a little bit. R. Scott Clark, Westminster Seminary, California. We have a Westminster Seminary, California graduate here, and in Dan. I think he's the only one. How are things in the Escondido area?
I just saw Dan's jacket. So
these are my vestments. As Bishop of Festivus, these are my ecclesiastical attire. You can borrow this for Big Red Saturdays.
I was busy trying to figure out the sound. I wasn't looking at the picture. I couldn't really see it. And then there you came. Oh, that's great. That is outstanding.
So for the
I'm
listener,
going to dazzle my Geneva gown with the same sequence.
we didn't.
It's a red sequined smoking jacket.
I think
Liberace.
it's lame, and
Is
it's peak lapel.
50 million Presby-cast fans can't be wrong.
That's right. You can't say Dan doesn't make an effort.
Larry Liberace is online too, and he wants his jacket back.
All right, Doc, you're a little low in your level, so either get up on your mic or turn yourself up.
Sorry about that. How's that?
So, you're a church historian, and well,
not according to some people, but anyway, carry on.
We've got a special guest, and I know that Dan studied church history as well, and he was over there in the UK, which is sort of where our guest comes from, and I don't know. This is our first time traveling guest, and well, Dr. Martin Lloyd Jones is joining us, and let's see if his audio is working. Are you there, Doctor?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, your level's low. I'll try to turn you up, and all right, let's try that again.
I see his icon.
Yes, this is the good Dr. Martin Lloyd Jones. I bring you greetings from across the pond. I am here calling on this most festive of evenings on the Festivus to give you my hearty, well, the heck with it. Happy Festivus, everyone.
Well, it's good to be joined by such an esteemed. I think, Doctor, since we're talking about the new Calvinists, the young, restless, and reformed, we've got a podcaster who specializes in that. Got two church historians. I think you were the first new Calvinist. What do you say about that?
I would have to disagree with you, actually, Jodels. The first of the new Calvinists was definitely Charles Haddon Spurgeon. He was, as the Twitter bros say, currently a based bro if there ever was one.
So, I mean, I would think you were confused in some ways because I think you were a new Calvinist because you came out of the Calvinistic Methodists, which is like saying the dry water crowd or something. That doesn't make any sense to me. So can you explain that? I mean, that seems like cognitive dissonance of some sort.
No cognitive dissonance here. I just went to medical school, cut my teeth on the Bible, and I think it was, what did it take me? About 23 years to get through the book of Romans. And since that time, I have been working my way through Obadiah, verse by verse, word by word, syllable by syllable, and I am well over halfway and still have 20 more years to go. So it's just really untrained, grip it and rip it exegesis of the scriptures.
You were telling me this morning that you did this series on John, and you spent a long time on the first two words, and I was thinking about that. That was in thee, I think. And so
yes.
How would you spend weeks on in and thee?
Well, you have to get into the original Greek, and then you have to translate that into Welsh. You have to roll your R's if you do it. And I was able to milk at least 2 months out of those first two words. And then I could, I'm still working on John, as it were. But I think I'll be done in probably about 30 years at this rate.
All right, Dr. Clark, as a church historian, do you have any questions for the good doctor of Westminster Chapel?
How did it come about, your successor? That always puzzled me. I mean, I have some ideas, but I have questions as well. How did your succession happen?
Well, by that point, I was dead and in glory, and whatever they did in my absence, that's on them.
Did you not leave any instructions before you left?
Well, as you can imagine, I left them a series of tomes as to what to do in my absence, but I don't know that they read them. In much the same way that modern day deacons don't really read. I don't know that they read my exhaustive instructions. I actually told them to hold on, hang tight, until one R. Scott Crock would be born and he could take over my pulpit.
Yeah, that seems unlikely.
Either you or the backup was Daniel, the man you'll never forget, Boven.
So, Dan, do you have any questions for Dr. Lloyd-Jones?
If you were to tackle the Psalter, how many years would you allot for the entire 150 Psalms?
150 years. What would you have?
Seems about right.
I was told also, I'm calling you on the internet machine, that this was Festivus, which is also the high year in the Puritan calendar. And I wondered if this would be an appropriate time to air my two grievances.
Oh, we'd very much like to hear that. Yeah, exactly.
The first is the poverty of American English and the recreant usage and unnecessary usage of prepositions like on. I want to love on you, man. That to British ears would be very offensive. The only person that I give permission to love on Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones is Mrs. Lloyd-Jones, and that's all I have to say about that.
Well, I have a question about Mrs. Lloyd-Jones. My understanding is you came to London. I don't know if that was in the teens or the 20s, and the Welsh community was pretty tight, and you all went to church together. And you would have these meetings, spiritual meetings, called, I think the word was Seiat, S-E-I-A-T, something like that. And pretty much anyone could stand up and say whatever they wanted to say, which is not a good idea, I don't think. I'm not sure that's decent.
That's literally what this is.
Right, exactly. And so I think... your future, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice altogether. Your future wife's father stood up at this meeting, and no, you stood up because you were sort of a moralist when you were young, and even though you were training to be a medical
I'm
doctor,
still a Southern pietistic moralist. Thank you very much.
Well, we welcome you in the PCA, of course, but you stood up and you railed against too regular bathing. In other words, bathing more than once a week. And your future wife's father stood up and said, "Our Bethan is forever in the bath." He agreed with you, and he agreed that this bathing thing happened too often. But what I read in your biography was that your wife, she required you to bathe more than weekly.
Does your wife require you to bathe more than weekly, Charles?
Well, she doesn't require it.
I met some Welshmen who apparently were devoted disciples of Lloyd-Jones in that area.
Yeah, I think modern celebrities Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis follow a similar trajectory, as the news let us know a few weeks ago.
Appalachia is the new black, gentlemen.
Yeah, Doctor, you're right about prepositions, though. I appreciate that. I just wanted to say amen.
Oh, thank you for the cowbell. We really need more cowbell in the PCA, especially. Dr. Scott Clark, I did want to say, I don't want to put words into your mouth.
No, ahead. Everybody else does.
Well,
you know what that's like.
Oh, I know exactly what that is like. Scott Frost.
Yes.
He has to be on your Festivus list. Am I correct in saying that?
I'm shocked that A, you're able to communicate to us from heaven, and B, that you're paying attention to American football. That's astounding.
I am hiding out with Tupac Shakur, Elvis Presley, and the notorious B.I.G. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, you'll have to give our warmest greetings to Biggie. That's fabulous.
The largest donation, to the Human Fund tonight will, of course, receive a signed copy of a picture featuring the aforementioned individuals. So
more
please,
money, more problems.
So again, please open up your checkbooks. This is money for people.
Money, yes.
We need a meme with those guys in the famous Death Row magazine cover.
Yeah. I also wanted to say thank you for being so very clear about Norman Shepherd. So you gave in too easily when he accused you of being a moralist. You're very stout on upholding justification against Shepherd. So we're all thankful for that.
If the active and passive obedience together are not imputed to the Christian, then we are left to make it up ourselves. So, Norman Shepherd, if you're listening to this, you're not in the gangster's paradise with me. So, wherever you are, you are wrong. I will say this, and my second of grievances is, why is there no more fun with Baptists on the Presby-cast? Its absence has been noticeable. I can only assume that it is because all Baptists have become Anglican in recent days.
What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms.
It is true. It has been quite a while.
Welcome to Fun with Baptists on your favorite podcast, Presby-cast. And now, Baptists.
That is why they take the prodigal son passage in Luke 15 and they make it that it must be that this is a man getting saved instead of someone who was a son and got away from God and came back in a backslidden condition. And the reason is, they say, because yes, he was a son in the legal side of the relationship, and they use this as a proof text, and then he got away and then discovered he wanted to be a part with God in the true sense, and so then he came back. And that's what they call the eternal sonship of the elect. All the elect are already sons, and it'd be good if they could discover that someday, but if they don't, they're still elect and they're still going to heaven. So you cannot remove Calvinism from Catholicism. Calvin taught Catholic doctrine, modified it, and that's what these Reformed people are teaching, okay? Now, so why is that a big deal? I'll tell you why it's a big deal, because as a student of Baptist history, I look at Baptists coming through history doing such great things and holding to the right theology, and then all of a sudden you have this 16th century, 17th century, and there's no denying it, many Baptists went into Calvinism. And it's caused great problems, and it is Protestant Catholic doctrine. It is not Baptist doctrine. Now, thank God today we don't deal with that much in our churches, but I'm going to tell you what, your people preachers are seeing it on the internet, and the internet has been taken over by the Calvinists. Twitter, Facebook, every bit of it has been, and these guys are smooth. And there's bridge guys that will lead them into it. A MacArthur, a John Piper, D. James Kennedy, these kind of people. I believe D. James Kennedy's passed away. R.C. Sproul. Be careful about some of that stuff, people. And I would encourage you, if you're not a pastor, listen to your pastor. Keep your nose out of that garbage doctrine and theology that you're getting off the internet, and listen to your pastor. That's why God gave you a pastor.
All right, Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones, does that work for you?
I've never wanted to not rub on someone so much, but positively lay hands on them. So I'm going to kick this over to RSC. How did you feel about this?
I'm amazed that Calvinists have so much power. I've never heard Calvinists described as smooth before. So that I love that. That's fantastic. And
he should be our new PR guy.
We do dominate the internet, though.
We took over the internet and we're smooth. What could be better about Calvinists?
He's like the teacher in high school who tries to tell you about the dangers of smoking, but instead but he does it in a perhaps a red sequined jacket in class to demonstrate how uncool it is. But then everyone runs out and gets a pack of Reds and a jacket.
Yeah.
That guy was on the account that came from. Of course, that was Bad Preacher Clips, I think, is who I got that from on Twitter. But the guy was on a tour bus. And I don't know where Baptist tours go. I mean, I guess they go to Gatlinburg and Sevierville, and then they drive all the way across,
Branson,
Tennessee. Yeah, Branson. That's the next stop.
Hollywood.
But this guy's giving a Baptist history lecture on this tour bus, and if you hear something in the background, it's the dog. So
it's the Presby dog.
Yes, it is. So, Doctor, did you catch a lot of flack for being a Calvinist in your day, or was it cool then?
I always conducted myself in a most dignified manner, and quite frankly, whenever I come over to the U.S., people would just fall down at the sound of my Welsh accent. I mean, I could say the word spam, and they would think it's so profound that I never caught any flack over here, but over on the other side of the pond, neither here nor there, just rolled off the back.
Well, we know that you are a superb diagnostician, both medically and spiritually, very perceptive. You got a little weird sometimes, but generally your instincts were very good. I gather you've been. I think you told me you've been able to read the Aquila report and Dr. Clark's blog. So we would be remiss if we didn't ask your opinion on some of the current events and, well, let's say the PCA, for instance. I wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
Yes, well, I can say with all confidence that the Heidel blog's bite is just as good as its bark. It is fantastic. Maybe a third grievance is that R. Scott Clark is not in the PCA. You would be fantastic, and you would take a lump of coal and put it in Greg Johnson's stocking, for which we'd be appreciative. Now, tonight, what a wonderful, my heart was slightly broken because I've been tweeting Dr. Clark's account for several weeks, mailing everything to the postman, and it doesn't seem that he has reciprocated on my recent tweets. But I do fear, based upon the Heidelberg and the Aquila report, that the PCA denomination is in grave danger of incurring the wrath of a holy God if they do not get their act together in the very near future.
I must have there must be a Twitter filter to keep people out of my DMs who are dead.
You have the undead filter on.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you been checking your mailbox?
You're the only person who apparently is unable to contact me by DM. You couldn't. Since you've managed to master the internet machine, you can always get me on the contact page at the Heidelblog, heidelblog.net/contact. I would love to hear from you, Doctor.
What is a DM? I've been sending you physical print tweets. I've been giving them to the postman each week.
Well, that might explain why I haven't seen them. Yes, well, since you've mastered the internet machine, that's my recommendation. So you evidently don't understand DMs. That's okay. You're not missing much.
Well, you're signing them DM Lloyd Jones as well.
That's right.
That I am.
So, Dr. Clark, you did write this article that I have on the screen now.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah, and as Dr. Lloyd Jones quoted your title, Johnson to the PCA, quote, Merry Christmas, here's a lump of coal for your stocking. End
Not
quote.
that there's anything wrong with that.
We're pro coal. We're pro coal in East Tennessee.
Yeah, well, we better be.
So, why did you write this article? And I'm sorry, let me just go ahead and say I'm going to boot one of our earliest joinees so that another can join us. So it's nothing personal. But what prompted you to write this article?
Well, to be honest, I was in the midst of writing a nice, sweet devotional article on a passage in Luke 22 through 35, known traditionally as the Nunc Dimittis, about the prophet Simeon. I was literally in the process of typing up some notes, or writing up an article on the basis of some notes I had taken, and I'm not sure how I came to. It must be. I think I took a peek at Twitter. Always, there was a mistake, I guess, and Presby-cast posted or sent or something. Somehow, anyway, I saw the USA Today. I think it was Presby-cast account posted the link from USA Today, and then the accessible link through Yahoo News, and I read that.
Yeah, and this was the story about Greg Johnson. And,
well, by him, yes.
Yes, in USA Today, distributed on Yahoo News. And I have noted that if you're a sort of evangelical who's throwing all the other evangelicals under the bus, the Washington Post, the New York Times, USA Today, they've got ears for you, and they love that. Just an aside.
Well, and it's essentially the same thing he said to Christianity Today. So you'd almost think that he'd have a record or something that he was selling, making the rounds. I don't know. And he keeps starting off by saying that he was a 13-year-old atheist gay kid. Well, I was a 13-year-old agnostic straight kid. Big deal. So I mean, I'm sorry that. That he was struggling with his sexuality, and I hope he gets the help he needs, because he, in my experience as a pastor and as a counselor, there are very few people who are actually just born homosexual. It's typically people who've been neglected, abused, and almost invariably. I mean, so I mean this sincerely. He clearly needs help, and I take these articles, and I haven't said this, but I take these articles as a sort of public cry for help and attention, and of course he's getting the attention, and in some ways I guess I'm helping to feed the beast. But anyway, be that as it may, so I saw it, and I just thought it needed a response, and I just thought it was I think people in the PCA need to pay attention and to face, what's being said. One of the interesting things that came up in the comments was, and people have said something like this before, because I've not read the testimony he gave. I don't know if it was in Presbytery or in some other setting, but apparently he has said different things in an ecclesiastical setting than what he has said in public. And those are the things that I have read, the article in Christianity Today, this article in USA Today. And then I was very fascinated by his comments on the floor of GA from 2019, which were of a similar sort. But apparently, and I'm just by what people have said, I'm given to understand that he said somewhat different things in an ecclesiastical setting. So we're left to try to reconcile these things or to see them as opposites. I don't know. I'm not sure what to do with that. But he's clearly, these two pieces, the two written pieces, are pieces that he has written with his own hand, presumably without any compulsion, right? Nobody forcing him, at gunpoint to write this. And so I take this as honest testimony about how he sees himself, what he believes, and how he thinks about these issues, side B, same-sex attraction, all of that.
Yeah, well, there's, I guess you fail to understand that there's a difference between a gay Christian and a Christian who's gay and a Christian who is called gay by everyone else. I mean, there's a withering number of terms, and there's a truckload of nuance that's required, and there's a glossary that seems to be changing pretty rapidly in whether the desire is sin or it's of sin. That's one of the points that's been argued. Let me say this though, because I mean, now we're looking at the Yahoo News headline, which has the USA Today story, and I couldn't really.
May I offer one grievance before your point?
I think I know what it is. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like to offer a grievance on the clickbait title. Confessionalists hate this one simple trick.
Yeah. Here's a trick for de-escalation. That's actually. Let me read the headline. I'm a gay celibate pastor of a conservative church. Here's a trick for de-escalation. So I retweeted it under the words, this one weird trick might help you avoid ecclesial discipline, or something like that. And a lady today replied to that. She questioned whether the author of the tweet, who happened to be me, was a Christian and whether I was even human. I did not engage the person, but I did speak to...
I can confirm yes to one of those two things.
Right. So, and I replied privately to someone, I'll bet I have more same-sex attracted Christian friends than this lady did, who replied to me, does. But these are same-sex attracted Christians who are not making a career of it, and who don't wear a badge or the uniform or fly the flag. And I think it's we said we weren't going to talk about Revoice anymore until February, so I apologize. But I think there's a case to be made, and maybe even the great doctor of the soul, Martin Lloyd-Jones, might want to weigh in on this. It might be the most merciful thing to someone struggling with what Greg Johnson is struggling with, not to burden them with the office of pastor. I would like to think that people have counseled Greg Johnson to sort of lay low and not make a career of this for his own good. And he has rejected the advice. I hope that it's not the case, that no one has cared enough about him to give him the good counsel to turn away from some of these public expressions and condemnations and sort of passive-aggressive things he's said and written. But Dr. Lloyd-Jones.
It's pretty easy not to submit something to USA Today. I think that is indicative of whether or not he has taken people's advice.
It's true.
It's not a big jump from celibate to celebrity.
I would think
easy.
I was going to say,
I'll say this.
This whole thing reminds me of like the like Kermit and then Dark Kermit meme, where it's like the regular Kermit the Frog here is just saying lay low, don't do anything, and then Dark Kermit is write the book.
Did you notice in this article that it talked about in coming months I may be forced out of my denomination?
Yeah.
How did that strike you, Chortles?
Well, I don't know. I've thought with the tone that Johnson has taken, some of the things that he said, especially on sort of sympathetic platforms, podcasts. Sorry for the Second Commandment violation. That was on the Yahoo News website. Scrolling past that, trying to get to that quote.
Job's son just smashed his computer.
Yeah, arguably he's been sending signals that he's, at least looking, keeping an eye on where the exits are. Uh, we can't know that, but I don't think he's always said things that indicate he's in this for the long haul. I could certainly be wrong about that, and I found that even the best of men will change their mind about what they're going to do from day to day, and who knows what he plans to do. But he doesn't make noises like someone who believes the PCA is maybe his forever home. But that's my take. It's certainly a fairly combative tone that he takes. Some fairly stereotypical descriptions of people in the PCA. And on a recent podcast, we played some clips that were probably borderline scandalous things that he said about many people in the PCA. So I'm open to other people's input on that, and I'm looking for that quote for us. But so Scott, what's your take as a church historian? I mean, you look at trajectories and that sort of thing. There was a very nice article that published on Reformation 21 early this week by a former Church of England vicar, and he warned the PCA that what happened over there in the past 10 or 15 years he sees happening here. And most people don't know this, but Side B, gay Christianity, pretty much came to us from the UK, from your former home, Dr. Lloyd Jones. So don't know if you're partially to blame or not.
In defense of the doctor, I would think not, since he urged everyone to leave the Church of England. I'm pretty confident I'm remembering that correctly. That was a schism in the 1960s between the independents and the C of E evangelicals, Packer, and I don't know if Stott was a figure yet, but certainly Packer was.
I wanted all of them to go into what would be the ACNA. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, I don't think so. Weren't you calling people to leave the Church of England? I mean, not and certainly not to go into a denomination which seems to me to be rather mixed and theologically mixed, and maybe an improvement over the C of E, but not a massive improvement over the C of E.
If I recall myself well enough, I'm pretty positive that I was a Baptist. Maybe I took a page out of John Owen's book with independent congregationalism, and we'll leave it at that.
Doctor, you must have hit your head on the way up to heaven, because I'm pretty confident you were never a Baptist. You did become a Pentecostal late in your life. I was going to ask you about that, what it was that drove you to Pentecostalism in your last couple of books, but Baptist, I think not.
I've heard it both ways.
Well, you were there, so that'd be nice to get. See, this is clarifying, because it always seemed to me, if we could get a hold of these dead people, this is what I do. I read dead people, and I've often thought, well, if I could ask this fellow, then he would clarify for me some of these ambiguities. But you are showing that, in fact, talking to dead people is not all that clarifying. So that I appreciate that.
You know what, Dr. Clark? I have nuanced for you as best as I possibly can. So take that.
Nuanced, yes. Yeah, well, then you're ready for the PCA. That's what Chortles tells me. It's the home of nuance.
Well, there is that. But Greg Johnson describes the PCA in this way. Let me read. I found the quote. You can imagine how fun denominational gatherings can be. Me, that's Greg Johnson, with a couple thousand, mostly older, white, church-going, Southern, heterosexual religious conservatives with children and grandchildren and seersucker suits. One of us is not like the others. Let me interject here that Greg Johnson wore an ascot this year, so he was definitely not like the others. But the seersucker thing is overstated.
It's mostly leather satchels and blue blazers and khakis. So does he ever?
There are way more T-shirts
Yeah.
at General Assembly than there are seersucker suits.
REI makes a killing on the PCA.
And the North Face.
I think I'll lend him my sequin jacket for next year's GA.
Just stitch a Patagonia logo on it, and someone will ask you which store you got it in.
No, you should after the holidays, Dan. You should box that up and send that to Greg Johnson. I'm sure he would think it was fabulous.
Fabulous.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I check in on that church's videos from time to time, and he does preach in a cowl neck tuxedo jacket with a T-shirt under it sometimes. It's unusual, and it's not much more unusual than Dan's red lame evening jacket. But enough about
When they invite me to their pulpit, I'll definitely wear this jacket.
Not to throw shade or anything, but that is sort of reminiscent of youth pastor attire. Just saying.
You had a great youth pastor.
All right, so that's the voice of Zoe, one of the Presby girls. Their first show was released just 2 days ago, and it's a hit. And I don't know if Dr. Clark has had a chance to listen yet, but I think maybe this is the time to shower accolades and encouragement on Zoe and her only present in the comments co-host Sarah Morris.
I'm looking forward to it. I have not listened. I have been doing a couple of things. I'm trying to finish a book, and anyway, and so I've not. I'm behind on all my podcasts, but I did see that, and I'm very enthusiastic about it. So I look forward to it.
Well, I think Lennox listened to it. Lennox.
Yeah, we were listening to it, and one thing that really struck me partway through it is listening to it with my wife, and Zoe and Sarah were talking about the importance of theologically and ecclesiologically engaged women in the church, and I noted to my wife, who was an example of a theologically and ecclesiologically engaged woman, that one very important presence there is besides what they already said about shaping the future generations of leaders in the church, is also that those women demonstrate that you don't need to have women's ordination, you don't need to have women officers to have a really influential presence and voice of women in the church, and of women who can be very well qualified to speak out as to why they really don't want to be ordained, and they don't want to have women elders and pastors, and have articulate reasons why.
Yeah, we've met women, so I'm pretty comfortable with male-only ordination.
No. Oh no, that's one of the things I've learned, and I think what Rush Limbaugh had his indisputable truths of life or something like that. One of mine, and it does not apply to my wife, but about 20 years ago it hit me that a lot of women don't like a lot of other women. Is that what you're talking about? And so
That's pretty true. I think it depends. A lot of women don't like a lot of other women, but it all depends on different reasons. It generally depends on personality. And until I met Sarah and Lennox's wife and some other Presby ladies, I didn't like other women because they weren't interested in the same things as me, and they actually thought it was kind of weird. I've never had this problem with guys, by the way. Just saying. Well, I mean, part of the reason I haven't really hit it off with other women, maybe it's my personality. Don't exactly know why. Funny that. But But one of the reasons I love the PCA so much is that we don't feel it necessary to ordain women in order to find them valuable, because for some reason the discourse on women's ordination is always, conservative denominations don't value women and that's why they don't ordain them. And I think this conservative denomination, well, fairly conservative, at least, in the grand scheme of things, this denomination respects women by not ordaining them. And even if you have an individual instance in which there's a woman who, like Lennox's wife, is theologically educated, might be a good speaker, might be really excellent, it is actually valuable not to ordain her, because the people who want to ordain women generally view it like the value is imbued in the office, not in the role. So we definitely prioritize, and we definitely appreciate our teaching elders and our ruling elders for the special function that they play in our denomination. But we also don't not ordain women because we don't think they can do it or because we don't think they're valuable. That's not the reason. So it's basically the arguments for women's ordination is very interesting, because the argument against it is not women aren't valuable enough to be ordained. So you hear a lot of them. They're fascinating. But yes, I love the PCA. I will continue to come and be a participant as long as they don't ordain me. As long as I can never be moderator. My dad will joke with me sometimes. He'll be like, you can run for moderator next year probably. And I say, well, I hope not.
Well, forcible ordination, that's something we do. We don't want to get into.
There's a Seinfeld bit on that about how, sort of the luge is the one Olympic sport that you could sort of be forced into against your will. Like, but I don't want to be in the luge. But perhaps PCA moderator is one of those positions. I sort of have this, if I was in charge of America, elected office would be the punishment, not the reward. And so maybe moderatorships should be the same thing. Like, congratulations, you now have to steer this sinking ship.
If elected office since elected office is now a reward, the punishment is awarded to the constituents.
Yeah, it's like the ship is sinking. Row yourself ashore with this gavel.
Well, hopefully we'll all.
Dead air was laughter in my mind.
We'll all be ready, as the old song said. So, let's jump back to this list, because I sort of wanted Dr. Clark to weigh in too, and maybe Dr. Lloyd Jones from the netherworld can help us as well. So, Scott, we've been going through TGC's top 10 non-theology theology stories.
You're going to get me in trouble.
Well, you don't. No. You'll be all right. You don't have to say anything. There's no. This is like we don't forcibly ordain anyone. All right. So their number 8 was, basically the stuff you see on TV, all the trauma and violence. Number 7, the cultural and historical shape of evangelicalism scrutinized. Another sort of awkward headline. I think they're talking generally about deconstruction, but also sort of evangelicals navel gazing and trying to figure out what's wrong.
Yeah. Well, obviously the Trump presidency and the evangelical identification in the popular press media created a crisis for some folks anyway. So hence the navel gazing. What does it mean to be evangelical? Do we like John Wayne too much? If we, turn Jesus into John Wayne, all of that stuff. So
evangelicals love nothing more than talking about who is and who is not an evangelical.
Or what is, no, that's right. What is or what isn't evangelical.
Right. Well,
I wrote a book on that, all of you. What is an evangelical? Have you not read my book?
I do actually remember looking at that. It's been
since canceled.
Yeah. Well, you know,
is this the first time one of our episodes has been commented on Mystery Science Theater 3000 style as it's aired? I mean, we've done this to other people many times, but Dr. Martin Lloyd Jones is having a Tom Servo-like performance on this episode.
Well, and let me say there are literally hundreds and hundreds of, a great many live chat comments, but I don't have time to look at them, but 93 messages in the private chat. So this is a lively bunch that we have with us. I should say that, Daryl Hart, our friend, often talks about how much the OPC likes to talk about itself and analyze itself and focus on its history. So it's not just evangelicals who do that, but certainly. So our restless podcast friend Matt, what do you make of the deconstruction and the I don't know, the violent navel gazing that's going on?
I mean, it is as Matt Chandler said in a Twitter clip that got him taken to the woodshed last week. Sexy, right? It's cool to talk about deconstruction and just these are some great words: disenculturation. But I mean, we just recorded an episode on what is an evangelical culture and what is Big Eva. And we asked some of our listeners to send their definition of evangelical, and we had a few people send us their ideas and say, but please don't connect my name to this definition, because apparently it is amongst evangelicals it is so hotly debated again forever, continuing to be, that they didn't want to be known as having associated themselves or whoever they put in their definition as an evangelical.
Well, I am reliably informed that the PCA is in a national alliance of them.
Yes, and there's yet another overture to remedy that. So stay tuned. We'll do a show about that probably between now and June. One of the classic definitions, and I think Daryl Hart uses this, and maybe Dr. Clark has used it as well, that an evangelical is someone who likes Billy Graham. Dr. Lloyd Jones, I think that means you're not an evangelical, because you ghosted Billy Graham once.
The connection with heaven has gone bad.
Speaking of ghosting.
Okay, so I've just completed the reading of the chapter on Billy Graham. He was born in North Carolina. Is that not correct? Is that Presby territory?
Yes, it is.
It is?
Yes. Presby, I'd be curious to hear your take on Billy Graham and the authoritative, this is what we ought to believe concerning him.
I couldn't tell you a single sentence the guy wrote. I don't know what his voice sounds like. This is
Presby's young. He's very young.
Well, it's not only the age. It's also, I guess, a perk of growing up Roman Catholic. There is so much of this stuff that I just have no idea about.
My students don't know who Billy Graham is, so
wow.
You can't use him as a definition of evangelical anymore.
Are they even converted then?
Do they not watch TBN?
No, they don't. Wow. I don't think, and they don't know who Graham is. I have to explain everything now. I can't make any references, but more than 20 years old without explaining it. So it slows class down rather considerably.
So that means Dr. Lloyd Jones is off the radar too. Sorry about that, Doc.
It's just Dr. Clark in class going like, see, it's funny because, and just explaining the punchline in every single lecture now.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. Hey, Chortles, before I don't know how long you're going, and I was under the impression that your wife had assigned me some research, so I did it.
Oh, okay. All right. So,
Do you want me to make my book report?
Yeah, let me set it up. Dr. Clark did an excellent podcast recently, last one or two. Me and Ranger the Presby dog always listen on our Sunday morning walks before church, and there's no one around, so we can just blast it out of the phone speaker. And he talked about Santa Claus and how cruelly he told his children that Santa Claus was a clown, and that was interesting. But he didn't mention the real Saint Nicholas, who supposedly punched a heretic. So her question is, what about the real Saint Nick?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and thanks to Resby wife, or Mrs. Resby. I don't know what her official title is.
It's Mrs. Weekly.
Mrs. Weekly. Okay. I like Resby wife actually, but anyway.
I'll throw that idea by her.
Okay. So Nicholas who's the Bishop of Mura in Lycia, which is in southern Turkey. So if you look at a modern map of Turkey, you just go all the way south in sort of south central Turkey, and there you'll find Mura. We actually don't know a great deal about him. There's a lot of questions. There's been some work in recent decades that's clarified the picture some, and so it was good that Mrs. Weekly asked this question, because I had not really looked at this. So I bought Adam C. I'm so devoted that to the question and the research that I bought Adam C. English, The Saint Who Would Be Santa Claus, the True Life and Trial of Nicholas of Mura. And I haven't finished it, but I did get the basics in time to make the appearance on the Presbycast. And what we know is that he was born about AD 260, died about AD 335. So when he was born, Christianity was illegal, and there were just a few million, potentially, give or take, adherents to Christianity. And when he died, Christianity was a legal religion, had some state support. It wasn't yet the state religion, and it had more than 30 million adherents. So he was a bishop during a time of explosive church growth. He was a bishop during the Diocletian. He grew up during the Diocletian persecution, which is one of the more intense periods of persecution suffered by the church that ended really only with the legalization of Christianity in AD 311 anyway, and then again 313. So ended in the early 4th century, and that was a sort of, these were the shaping experiences of his life. There's been a lot of doubt over the years. A lot of the stories we have about him are late and not well verified, but there's been a lot of doubt about whether he was even present at the Council of Nicaea. That's the tradition. He until recently, it was some, and there's still some question, but many people doubted that he was even present at the Council of Nicaea. There are 16 lists of bishops, and they vary. He's on a few of them. I don't remember exactly how many, but we don't know if he punched Arius. It does seem like he was probably there now, at least according to one monk who basically devoted his life to studying Nicholas of Mura. And it seems like he was probably there, but we don't know anything about him punching Arius. Though it is the case that they found his remains in 1953, and in 2004 they did a digital reconstruction of his face, and he has a broken nose, among other things. Actually, he had a large number of injuries. The end of his life must have been fairly miserable, because he looked like he was probably in a lot of pain. But Gerardo Ciofari was the fellow who really did all the work on him in the modern period, and it's
so did Arius punch back if he had a broken nose?
Well, that's the interesting thing. I mean, yeah, or maybe he punched other heretics, or maybe he was just, I don't know, maybe got hit with a soccer ball. It's tantalizing.
Did they check for gunshot residue and defensive wounds?
Maybe
No, well-
Mrs. St. Nicholas was the culprit.
Well, that's entirely possible. He's the patron saint of sailors, churches, and children. But all the business about distributing gifts and the transformation of Saint Claus into Sinterklaas and Santa Claus, obviously that's all. There's no basis in history. He was, by the way,
he invented the gift card too.
he was about 5'4" for what it's worth. He was a tiny little guy, shorter than Godfrey and Horton.
Oh no! Well,
Yes, considerably, by about 3 or 4 inches. Or
that's
more. Anyway, there you go. So there's my homework.
St. Nicholas. Okay, so you're not really impressed with that there's a great connection between the real St. Nicholas and what you refer to as the Christmas clown, Santa Claus.
Yeah, that was my pastor Vern Palama in Lincoln. That's what he told his kids, that because I had never heard anyone who didn't believe, who didn't tell their kids the Santa story. And so I don't remember how it came up, but he told me, no, we told our kids that the man in the red suit is the Christmas clown. And over the years, we thought, we had a few years before we had kids, and we had some time to think about it. And then when the kids came along, we decided to follow Vern, just on the theory that you can't lie to children, even conspire. There's a certain degree of conspiracy. I don't believe in conspiracy theories, but there's a certain degree of conspiracy here where everybody conspires to create, to give the impression that a fat white guy is going to climb down your chimney in the middle of the night, and he's going to do it all over the globe. And this really works. We put out the cookies and they were gone in the morning, so you have empirical evidence, circumstantial evidence, and all of that stuff. So you conduct this elaborate ruse, and then, at a certain age, you say, and by the way, Jesus rose from the dead, and that's really true. And we have witnesses. It seems to me you're in a somewhat problematic position, having insisted with all seriousness that Santa is real. And then that turns out not to be true. But you're equally serious about the empty tomb and the reliability of the gospel narratives.
Yeah, along those lines, I used to have this. I guess I still do have this theory that the fact that the Baptist I grew up with and among and as undermined the veracity of Scripture when they insisted that wine meant grape juice. When any intelligent 8-year-old can probably figure that one out, and
especially when Scripture says, "Don't be drunk." Right? Don't be drunk with wine. If it's grape juice, that I don't see how that's possible.
Well, it's special.
Where can I buy this
special
Welch's?
Grape juice?
There's powerful Welch's, which was in so much abundance in the first century. Welch's.
Can we just say as well that it was, was it a Methodist? Was it a Welshman?
It was, yes, it was a Methodist. I don't know if he was Welsh, but it was a Methodist.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah, we said Welch's. We didn't say Welsh's.
And Jesus
almost
took
the same.
grape juice and he said, "This is my blood."
Yeah, exactly. Oinos, right? Omicron, before it was a virus, it was just a letter. Yoda, Nu, Omicron, Sigma. Oinos. Oinos is an intoxicating, a potentially intoxicating drink, which is why you're not supposed to abuse it. And that's the word that's used. So the people the teetotalers who make up nonsense about intoxicating drink in the first century, it may be that it wasn't as strong as some of what we call wine today. That's fine. I don't really care about that, because the point is it was potentially intoxicating. And the whole point of the story is that the wedding at Cana is they've been drinking for days, and then here comes the good stuff, when normally you would bring out the cheap stuff when nobody cared anymore. And here the good stuff comes out at the end. So it's just stupid. It's a stupid argument. It's an ignorant argument. It's a blind argument. People should stop making it. They clearly don't read Greek when they say this, and they don't know anything about anything when they tell me that oinos is not intoxicating. Just
It's a good
They have
idea to
one
be-
thing on us. Oh, they have one thing on us. They will never have the problems that the church in Corinth had, I guess.
Yeah, because Baptist churches never have problems with.
Well,
Never mind. I was
they
gonna
can't
say-
get drunk on grape juice, you know.
I think incest is still possible.
That's true.
Well, you know, there's the long-standing joke.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, as before Presby says it.
Well, let's say, you know, if you never take one Baptist fishing with you, always take two. Because if you take two, they won't drink any of your beer. And if you take one, he'll drink all of it. Because, anyway, Zoe's too young to have heard that story, but now she's heard it. So that joke.
I will use it to win over all of the older fellows at GA that I haven't already. So thank you.
Well, you does the best you can. So we probably we'll bring this in right about 2 hours. This is a special show, and you know, the most loaded Festivus show we've ever had, and we would be remiss if we ran everybody off. But we want to
do 'em all.
grievance. Yes, we want to blow through this top 10 non-theology theology stories. So number 6, Biden's White House advances liberal agenda as Trump's Supreme Court prepares key decisions. So this is the closest to a mea culpa on the part of TGC you're going to get. They said, surprise, Biden's a liberal, and surprise, conservative Supreme Court justices might render conservative decisions. So, shocking as both of these facts are, that's a theology story of some kind. And I'm open to comment on that.
Isn't it the Supreme Court of the United States? I mean,
Yeah, I was going to say it's Trump's Supreme Court just as much as it is Biden's White House.
No, this is the security, the security staff at Mar-a-Lago is going to be rendering these decisions.
I think we get better decisions, frankly, if we just replace the security staff of Mar-a-Lago with, into the Supreme Court. But,
can't be worse than Justice Roberts.
No.
Well, Zoe wants to be a political journalist one day, so you'll forgive her opinionated stance here. Number 5.
Because none of the rest of you are, just me.
No, you're just literally the worst. That's what we'll call you from now on.
I'll change my Twitter to literally the worst.
So number 5, Southern Baptist dividing lines harden in closely contested presidential election. I'm already bored with this one. So imagine that Baptists are arguing about something.
My dream of Beth Moore as president of the SBC went down in flames.
Yeah, it's the worst part of 2020.
Sad day.
There are a lot of Baptists becoming Anglican. At least it seems that way on social media. Is it that way in real life, or is that just a social media phenomenon?
It's just turned down the AC man became an Anglican, which is one of the most seismic developments in ecclesiology, I would say, in the last 2,000 years, approximately.
I'm convinced that, like Greg Johnson, Beth Moore loves some attention. So going Anglican gets her the attention.
Has she read the Book of Common Prayer?
True.
I don't know. I mean, Baptists don't read, man.
That was Dale. That was not anyone else. That you don't blame the wrong person for that one.
I'll own that one.
Zoe got stepped on.
Yeah.
It's okay. It was well worth it. I was just going to say I don't know if this is true because I'm not Anglican and I have not studied their liturgy, but it was pointed out to me by someone else that Beth Moore was doing something that is usually reserved for 20 to 30 year lay people in the Anglican Church, and she sort of just cut in line. She wasn't doing anything. It was like position of authority. She wasn't, she wasn't teaching or even exhorting, but apparently she did sort of cut in line ahead of all the elderly, longstanding members of whatever church that was. That is something I heard. I do not know if it is true.
Sort of and sort of the President Obama cutting in line at Franklin Barbecue moment. Also, another line you famously are not supposed to cut.
Did he really do that?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Oh, that's bad. I had no idea. That's a 4-hour line.
Yeah.
I've never done it just because I refuse to stand. I'm not standing in line for 4 hours. So, but if you're going to get Franklin, you've got to stand in line.
Well, it's called white girl privilege, and Beth Moore has it. So we knew that already, but she'll never be president of the SBC, and we just have to deal with that.
Maybe she'll be Archbishop of Canterbury.
We
can hope.
She could be better than Justin Welby, I think. All right.
She's a little more manly than he is.
Number 4.
She has the uniform.
And great hair. And all right, number 4. These could be called the Christian adjacent stories.
She might be more masculine than some of the archbishops I can think of.
And Welby. Yeah, she can take him in arm wrestling. The feats of strength. I got my money on Beth Moore over Welby.
All she needs to do is drink more shots of Bacardi than he does, and I think she could win that out.
Is she a Southern girl? Did she grow up on a farm?
Texas.
Oh yeah, she could take him.
She could totally take him.
Any Texas girl could take just about any Archbishop of Canterbury.
And all that hairspray would choke him out, and she would jump right in.
Rear naked choke.
Well, she beat him with a hairbrush. She's always got a big old hairbrush.
Well, it's all that. It's all that
Presbyterianism.
It's all that training fending off the 30 to 50 feral hogs.
Sweep the legs. Sweep the
30
legs.
to 50 feral Baptists.
Oh boy, what have we done? What
In
has
my
happened?
yard.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to finish this list. Number 4, Afghanistan withdrawal threatens persecuted Christians. Okay. It's not really a theological story, but they throw something in about God's sovereignty to make it sort of theological. So we'll go right on. This is from the obvious department. Vaccines add to church divisions over COVID-19 measures. Also, not a news bulletin, but a tip of the hat to all the mandate and.
Well, it's I mean, we should mention vaccine adds to church divisions. It is worth noting who's the one trying to drive the division in here, and carry on.
All right. Well, we did 6 or 8 or 10 shows about COVID, so that's another thing we probably should never talk about again.
I cut my teeth on the COVID shows, and I'm still here for what it's worth.
Well, yeah, you're probably damaged though. Okay.
I was damaged previously.
For a fact, I am from recording them.
Presby, you were damaged when you started this thing.
But if it weren't for COVID, we wouldn't have got the Tiger King episodes.
Well, that's true. That's true.
And for that, we are grateful this Christmas.
Silver linings of total depravity, man.
Absolutely.
All right. So
I've
now
never seen it.
our friend Matt can comment on this. The number 2 theological story, the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill podcast, rocks the church as leaders continue to fall. So, in other words, total depravity still not canceled. Matt, give us a 2-minute breakdown on why we should or shouldn't listen to the Rise and Fall of Mars Hill rather than your podcast, Restless.
Well, I'm claiming the true number 2 spot on the most important theological story of the year as our podcast. I think everyone probably listening to this has heard some of this podcast. No matter what church event I'm at, whether it's a PCA one or another one or a parachurch one and some of the other worlds I am often in, people are drawing lessons from what Christianity Today is saying. And I think what we often talk about on our podcast with it. And so you can go find the feed. If Mark Driscoll's in the name, it's probably us talking about this show. It's presented as flat journalism, but it's very clearly got a very specific axe to grind. It's got a very specific goal. I know the media. It's like TGC is the mainstream media, or sorry, it's not TGC. It's Christianity Today is by definition the Christian mainstream media, and so what we
is it any coincidence that TGC, Christianity and Today, and CNN all have C in their letters? I don't think so.
I don't think so. And so we go through the episodes and we basically state outright, I just state at the beginning of every episode, here was the thesis of what Mike Cosper was getting after today. And so this podcast it's shocking. It's having people are talking about it. Maybe people weren't aware of Mark Driscoll. I have copped to on my own podcast listening to hundreds of hours of his sermons. So the reason I will never be a good church historian like Dr. Clark is because I spent my younger years listening to that instead of reading church history. But it's is
not
clear.
Too late. It's not too late.
I'm working hard now to catch up. But it is clearly having an impact, and is a good one. That's certainly up for debate.
I think there's some revisionism going on there.
Yes, that's
there are institutions that have a stake in this.
Right. That's the other thing that it is so notable is that we are now ready to bravely slay Mark Driscoll. And well, it's a little late for that, frankly.
Yeah, and when Gospel Coalition leaders, for instance, fall or get run off or get as they said in Vietnam, fragged, taken out back and shot, there's never a story about that. They just disappear, disappear from the council or whatever. And so yeah, some people have criticized the podcast as what they call failure porn.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess Dr. Clark, probably a lot of church history could be called the same thing.
Well, yeah, that was my argument. So Jason Estopanol, who is a friend and who has a podcast, wrote an article basically arguing that case that we shouldn't listen to it, that the podcast series was a mistake, and I take the point that obviously Mike Cosper et al. They have an agenda, and there were lessons to be learned and so forth. But I have found the thing very illuminating, and I think it's illuminating of the differences between confessional Reformed theology, piety, and practice, and what passed for it, right, or what people took for Reformed in the Young, Restless, and Reformed movement. So I think people ought to listen to that so they will know what the Young, Restless, and Reformed movement really was, what what they said, how they practiced the faith, what they did, how they treated people, and how Driscoll was platformed, protected. How he, they allowed him to become a rock star. They facilitated it, and I think all of that needs to be exposed in the bright light of day. Myself, so I'm glad they did it. I mean, people should be discerning, and they should understand that there probably is some revisionism going on. If you look at Wenatchee the Hatchet, he was he's a blogger. And he's been describing the phenomenon up there for a long time. And he's one of the guys who blew the whistle on some of the abuses and things that were going on up there. But your point, Chortles, is exactly right, that you could just as well say, you shouldn't do church history because it involves telling, unpleasant stories about things people have done. This is this is quasi-journalism, and it's sort of a first write or first draft, or maybe a second draft of what happened up there. Anyway, I think people ought to listen to it. I think it's been fascinating. I'm not yet done with it, but I intend to finish it.
All right. Well, I will commend Restless to everyone. All right, let's get to the top of this list. The number one. These are theological stories. Remember, number one: U.S. Capitol storming unleashes flurry of debate over Christian nationalism. Well, I'll say this. I can't go to church or presbytery without everybody talking about Christian nationalism. And I don't remember the Sunday after January 6th or any Sunday since then that this was a big topic at my church. But I guess I'm in an odd church.
Isn't this just, I don't know. When I saw that, I did see this list, and it struck me, isn't this just code for, hey, we were not there. We were not in D.C. Don't blame us.
Everybody look at how much I'm opposing this.
Please, FBI, don't come and investigate us,
Right.
which is a little scary. I don't know it. And we're not Christian. We're not Christian nationalists, whatever that is.
We're not like those other evangelical Christians.
And it's very fashionable to throw J. Gresham Machen under any number of buses these days, but he was the least Christian nationalist of his era. I mean, he opposed what he called 100% Americanism, and he stood up for immigrants and people who didn't speak English as a first language, and
He opposed prayer and Bible reading in public schools.
Sure, he would have been an American, in the early version of the ACLU. He would have been a supporter of that, and he supported a Democrat, Al Smith.
When the ACLU actually believed in the Constitution and defended civil liberties.
Right. So Christian nationalism, Daryl Hart said it on this show many times. I'm sure Dr. Hart will agree. That was more or less an invention of the mainline. It's sort of the homogenization of the main line, where a Methodist liturgy looked like an Episcopal liturgy, looked like a downtown Baptist church liturgy, looked like a Presbyterian liturgy, and their churches all looked the same if they had some money. It was all in the service of Christianizing the nation, washing the swarthy immigrants, and making the neighborhood better, maybe raising property values. I don't know.
That was the original purpose of the public schools, was to homogenize and Christianize the unwashed immigrant masses, to Protestantize them. I mean, okay, who built the National Cathedral and who gets to use it? It isn't Assemblies of God folks rolling on the floor. It's pretty much the exclusive domain of mainliners, is it not? Is that not the epitome of Christian nationalism, a national cathedral? When they want to bury someone or hold a service for a significant figure, don't they do it at the National Cathedral?
Yeah.
So the mainliners are still Christian nationalists. So I don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, if we had more time, which we don't, we're done. We're out of time. But and you mentioned this, Dr. Hart, in your Greg Johnson story. I think you basically said his essay sounded like a sophisticate speaking to other sophisticates. So there is a divide in the church and in the country between the elites and sort of the average Joes, and we'll say for the women, average Zoes as well, since she's here with us. There does seem to be a disconnect, and
well, that was the point. He wouldn't be caught dead in a seersucker suit. Although I had a gay English prof who actually wore a seersucker suit.
Uh-oh, true confessions.
Anyway, yeah, there's more to the story, but I'm not going to tell you now or ever, probably. Nevertheless, it reeked of self-justification or othering. How about that? he othered 85-95% of the PCA.
Are we talking about the piece or your English professor's suit at this point?
I'm talking about the essay by
okay.
The Reverend Mr. Johnson. Yeah, no, my English prof didn't other anyone. Not that I remember.
All right. Well, I don't know how orderly it's been or if it's even been decent, but we've certainly aired some grievances. And I think the feats of strength involve those listeners who have been with us the whole time, and those who listen to the end. Dear podcast listener, you've done a feat of strength if you've made it to this point, and if you listen to the very end of the closing song, you're storing up treasures somewhere. So, any closing comments, parting shots from any of our guests? You can unmute yourself if you'd like. And we do want to thank everyone for participating, and sorry for the one person we had to boot. I think it was a voluntary booting, and the bootee rejoined.
A self-booting.
Yes. But anybody? No, we haven't heard from the bishop for a while. Dr. Borvin, anything we missed?
Oh, there's lots we missed, but we have another 364 days to air our grievances throughout the year. But happy Festivus, everybody. May it be full of grievances and much chortling weekly.
Did anyone have the traditional meatloaf today?
3 meatloaves.
Mrs. Resby did last night, actually.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's acceptable to do it on Festivus Eve. Dr. Lloyd Jones, you've been the highlight of the show, an unexpected and undeserved and a pleasure, a benefit. Is there anything you'd like to say to the 21st century in the American church at this point?
It is always good to mingle with the most appalling dump heap of overflowing, disgraceful assortment of deplorable rubbish imaginable, mangled up with tangled up knots. It's been my sincere pleasure to be over the ether waves, which each one of you Presbys.
Well, we're glad that you got through.
And also with you.
Yes. Yeah. Dr. Clark, thanks. Zoe, thanks. And stay tuned for, once or twice a month, a Presby Girls show. And I've seen their list of topics, and they are outstanding. They can certainly, they haven't made themselves, non-respectable yet, so they may have some stunningly respectable guests soon.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
My parting shot is youth groups. I don't like them. I could talk about it a lot. But my parting shot is also to those people who think that I think that youth groups are where kids go to get educated about the Bible. I do not. It starts in the home. I get that. But youth groups are still bad, and I would be happily explain it. And you know what? I will eventually. But I just want everyone to know that that's my parting shot this Festivus is youth groups and the Marvel comic book T-shirts on the guys that facilitate the reading of Jesus and John Wayne, because teenagers totally gain from that and enjoy it and are edified.
Well, and let it not be forgotten that Mark Driscoll himself used to preach in a Mickey Mouse T-shirt. So, Resby, I think we've exhausted this, and I think it is for you to tell everyone good night.
Well, thank you, everyone. Again, the fact that we finished this before Christmas Eve is somewhat of a Festivus miracle. So thank you to we're actually finishing before the end of Festivus. Is probably the better way to say that. So thanks to everyone for watching along, commenting along. If you're listening, this is listening to the very end at 1x speed is a feat of strength equal to the visual medium and experience. And so, again, I leave you with the famous words of Frank Costanza on this wonderful Festivus. Stop crying and fight your father, and don't be a nerdman.
I'm gonna walk a little, talk a little, rest my Savior. Give a little in his favor. Tell the world about the Master's wondrous love, and bow to his saving power. When the world down here is dead now, and the victory has been won, and the count of life is given, and I'm on my way to heaven. I need him every day and every hour. If you ever needed the Lord before, you sure do need him now. You sure do need him now. You sure do need him now. If you ever needed the Lord before, you sure do need him now. You need him every day and every hour. I need him in the morning, need him in the night, need him in the morning, need him in the night, need him in the morning when the sun is shining bright. Oh, if you ever needed the Lord before, you sure do need him now. You sure do need him now. You sure do need him now. If you ever needed the Lord before, you sure do need him now. You need him every day and every hour, every
Magic on the internet worldwide.